Haroon Jafree is a veteran CFO and operations leader, revealing the hidden challenges today's CFOs face.
Well, Haroon, you and I have spoken a lot over the last, couple of months around the big strategic challenges facing CFOs. And personally, I think a lot of these challenges are actually hidden challenges, the ones that don't necessarily show up in the numbers, but are really massive in terms of, and again, one of the biggest things you see happening across the market is this whole issue of, well, how do you get the right people to do the work in a finance team? And obviously CPG's got its own specific issues, but generally, if you're a CPA firm, if you're, big finance and accounting operation, finding the talent is the most difficult thing to do in the marketplace. What have you seen in terms of just over the last few years in terms of the US companies trying to solve it, or first of all, recognize that problem if they are, and then trying to solve it?
So, Ed, you're absolutely right. There is a general shortage of talent. I have my colleagues working in CPA firms who tell me the problem and the lengths that they go to try to retain their existing staff. So this is an ongoing issue of the industry. Now, within the CPG world, for a CFO, it becomes more acute because CPG accounting is very unique. And to find the resources who have CPG experience even narrows down the choices available in terms of hiring. And for a typical CPG company, if a CFO has to hire people who do not have the right experience, then obviously the data quality may get impacted in terms of how the transactions are processed, because that particular CPG approach of processing data may not be followed. So overall, this is having good talent in the accounting world is a problem, and this is even more compounded for CPG companies because of the specialized knowledge required to run a CPG accounting for areas like trade promotions management, cost of manufacture, and other areas unique to the CPG world.
Yeah, but this is the thing that fascinates me, because these are big issues. I mean, the numbers, I think it was like there's 20% less accountants generally in the US, full stop. The CPA numbers, they've been dropping year after year. Just between, I think 2022 and 2021, they dropped another 5,000 people, less people doing the exams. Plus, you've got an aging workforce of accountants. Obviously in the practices, they're retiring, but in the industry generally. So you've got this kind of big sort of demographic, issue. I hate the word time bomb, but demographic issue happening. So you've got that happening. But on the other hand, you're asking people to come in as specialists and do maybe pretty transactional work. So I always wonder, how do you actually make it attractive for one of the scarce resources to actually come and join your business when they're in the driving seat? You're the one that's always begging them to come or encouraging them. How do you actually make it palatable for them to come and join your finance function, not someone else's?
So it is a challenge overall, for the industry, and identifying a good resource is a problem in itself. And like you mentioned, that convincing the resource to come and work for your company for an extended period of time without the turnover is a different challenge. And the important thing is that there needs to be a certain critical mass of people who know the industry working for a CFO in a company, so that even if they have to hire somebody who's a bit short on the talent, they're able to bring that person in and everybody gets together and tries to train that person. Because if that knowledge is missing and everybody working for the CFO is a journalist, then the chances of bringing the right person in to be able to identify the right person who can work for the company with the right knowledge becomes a challenge. And even if in a situation that they are not able to find the person, to bring a person who's not from the CPG industry in and then training that person obviously is a knowledge, because if the team itself does not have the knowledge of the CPG industry working for a CPG CFO, then they are not able to train the people, and then it overall at the end of the day impacts the transaction processing, how efficiently the transaction is processed, and obviously affects the quality of the data that is being output from the accounting team and the decision making that goes along with it.
Yeah, but even to get to that stage, you're rightly talking about, when someone's actually joins the company and actually working there, can they get the expertise, you get the help to get up the curve for the industry. But the bit before that is, well, how do you actually sell that to someone? Say they've got many options out there. Every company's trying to recruit good accountants. How do you persuade that one person to come to your firm? And for me, you can't, or to your company, it can't be the same old, just with a boring job description saying, hey, you're going to be doing journal entries, you're going to be doing like monthly closes, all the kind of very boring stuff. To me, it's got to be very attractive. They've got to be saying, well, we're going to come and work for your for your CPG business because it's exciting, it's dynamic. All the kind of core work is being done by a shared service center, an offshore team. I'm actually able to do the value add work and really bring my expertise that I've built up over many years. And unless any kind of companies positioning their jobs in that kind of way, actually really selling them, then there's nothing attractive about why they pick you compared to someone else. And that's just, to me, that's the starting point. You actually have to sell the jobs.
So, Ed, if I were the CFO, and I've done a lot of hirings working for many different companies like Pepsi and other big companies. So when you're hiring people, especially young people, you have to give them the vision of the future. And what I used to do was to tell them that, listen, come on board, work with me. I will teach you the industry. I will teach you the dynamics of how this the transaction, how the business works from start to finish. I'll move you in different areas. I will give you exposure of the different types of transactions being processed. You will understand how the business is run in a few years. And so that used to be my pitch. And I actually used to deliver on my promise. I used to move the people around, cross-train them. I'm big on cross-training. So I used to give them exposure to different areas. If somebody working for a year or 2 years in one area, I used to move them around, give them exposure to another area. The critical thing, Ed, is that from a career point of view, everything is so specialized nowadays. Even for the accountants, it is very important for them, if they want to move forward and go all the way to a CFO, to have an exposure and a good grip of a particular industry rather than being a journalist and having worked in many industries. So my always recommendation to the young people used to be, hey, choose your industry, whether it is high tech or food or whatever, consumer packaged goods or pharma or whichever industry you want to choose, and then stick in it and try to move around. And the advantage of working with me would be that I will do that myself. I'm very aware of the fact, because I've been through this process myself. When I was younger, I was very eager to learn all the different areas of accounting and very eager to learn the business. So you don't have to ask me. I will provide you that opportunity and move you around and teach you how the business is run, so that one day you can go all the way up to a VP or a CFO position.
Yeah, and I think wonder nowadays if people got the luxury of time to do that kind of training, and then if you're actually, especially you're trying in a growing business as well, you're trying to grow a team. Maybe from nothing, or as opposed to the alternatives which are available now, to actually just go and find a partner that would plug in and either take over your, the existing transactional work so your team can focus on the higher value stuff, or to be your machine. So as your business grows, you've got something that can scale and grow without you having to kind of worry about headcounts.
So yeah, more and more companies are moving towards shared service. It used to be something that Fortune 100 companies used to do 20 years ago, but I'm seeing all companies of all sizes moved towards offshore transaction processing or a shared service center.
Yeah.
And the companies who have not done it, they are behind the curve in terms of getting there, because their peers or their counterparts have done it, and they have a more cost-effective P&L in terms of the headcount and the general image of going offshore and having into a shared service center is that your quality of work would decrease. Actually, it improves, especially if you go to a specialized shared service center like we have at Expertise Accelerated, that is focused towards the consumer packaged goods industry and the manufacturing industry. So they're actually, because they are doing so many other companies and they have the trained people, so that actually the quality of work improves and increases. So in this setup, what happens is that the employees which are onshore are doing more value-added work. So, I always encourage that there should be some boots on the ground, some people physically located in the office. So these people who are located in combination with the offshore service center, they're doing a critical value-added work. So it is a win-win. The cost for the CFO reduces, whereas the team that the CFO has on site is now doing more value-added work. And with the EA, because we bring expertise and the ability to consult and solve problems to the table, I'm very often providing advice to the CFOs or the accounting teams in general to be to how to follow best practice, whether it is in terms of systems or accounting processes. So these people who are working onshore really develop their knowledge base very quickly in working with a shared service center like an EA, which specializes in a particular industry. And it is a win-win. They get to learn very specialized, high-end work, whereas the shared service center is managing everything else. And the learning curve of the employees onshore obviously exponentially increases in working with this type of a shared service center.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is like almost a no-brainer. Look at demographic problem generally. You get less people in the finance profession. You get less and less specialized people in the profession. So the ones you've got, you want them to be really, using their expertise and their value to drive the business forward. Anything transactional, I mean, why would you waste the headcount trying to recruit anyone to fit the job, let alone someone who's specialised in skills? So that puts the business at risk generally. Plus, more importantly, how do you recruit that kind of senior finance person when they're going to be dragged into managing the weeds, or actually, not be able to use their full skills? So to me, demographically, this is something that every CFO has got to be looking at, especially in specialist areas like CPG. So there's that part. Then there's the second part is, well, once you've got there, then this gives you a flexibility that as the business grows, or let's say there's a problem that comes, say, with TPM, or you try to implement a new system, you've got the resources onshore to actually do the work, to actually investigate the project or evaluate projects or solve a problem, rather than, it's all hands on deck and every weekend is lost and you're working 12 hours a day. And then suddenly these people you promised, because of this great new world you're creating, are trying to leave because they're miserable. So to me, if you're not looking at alternative options to fill this delivery capacity, then you're throwing away your existing staff, you're not able to recruit new staff, and the quality of work you're delivering and the ability to be strategic just doesn't happen. I don't know why people are not looking at it just as a matter of course.